Okay, Unit 10 review. This numbers for question number 1. We need to write the sequence and determine whether it's arithmetic or geometric. State the common difference or ratio, and then find the explicit term. So if I were to add 2 to that, that would work for those two terms, but it wouldn't work for that. So it's not arithmetic. So now I'm going to try geometric. 12 divided by 10 is going to give me 1.2. 12 times 1.2 would give me 14.4. And 14.4 times 1.2 would give you 17.28. So this is geometric. And the explicit term would be a sub n is equal to the first term times your ratio, your common ratio, the n minus 1 term. If I were to subtract, I don't know why I'm putting a plus sign there, if I were to subtract 2.5, I would get 9.5 and so forth. So this is arithmetic. And the equation would be a sub n is equal to the first term minus your common difference, n minus 1. Because it's alternating between plus and minus or negative, I'm going to try geometric first. So my r would be equal to the second term divided by the first term. So if I were to multiply 1/8 times negative 2, I would get negative 1/4. And negative 1/4 times, I keep writing it 1/2 there, times negative 2 go into would be 1/2. So this is geometric. And the equation is a sub n is equal to your first term times your common ratio, n minus 1. Given the sequence is defined recursively as a sub 1 is equal to 14, and that's your equation, find the first 4 terms, or the first 4 terms. So a sub 1 you already know is 14. A sub 2 is going to be 14 minus 3, which is 11. A sub 3 is going to be 11 minus 3, which is 8. A sub 4 is going to be 8 minus 3, which is 5. The explicit formula would be the first term times your common difference, which means you're subtracting 3 each time. To find the 34th term, I'm going to just put it into explicit formula. And that's going to give me negative 85. Find the sum. I'm going to use the sum of the first 34 terms. So this is the equation I'm using, n over 2 times 2a1 plus d n minus 1. So that's going to be 34 over 2, and 2 times 14 minus 3 times 34 minus 1. Put that in my calculator, and I get negative 1,207. Find the first term of the arithmetic sequence if you know a sub 15 is equal to 30 and you know your d is 1.4. So I'm going to put it in the explicit formula and solve. So my first term is equal to 10.4. Find the d for the arithmetic sequence if you know your first term and you know your 40th term. So we need to find d. So I know 142.5 is equal to your first term plus d is unknown, and you know you're going to have 40 minus 1 for this. So channeling my inner algebra 1, just solving this, d is equal to 3.5. Write the explicit and recursive formula for the geometric sequence. So first figure out your r, second term divided by your first. Oops, getting carried away, writing a lot of 3's. So that would be negative 3/4. So explicit would be a sub n is equal to your first term times your ratio to the n minus 1. And your recursive would be a sub n is equal to your previous term times negative 3/4. Write the explicit formula for the arithmetic. First find your d, second term minus first. So your explicit is going to be a sub n is equal to 211 minus 18 n minus 1. And recursive would be your previous term minus 18. Find the sum of the first 8 terms. First you have to determine what it is. I suspect it's probably going to be a common ratio. So I'm going to do 9/20 divided by 3/4. So I would be given my common ratio of 3/5, which would work because 9 times 3 would give you 27, and 20 times 5 would give you 100. So it is a geometric. So the equation I'm going to use is 3/4 1 minus your r to the nth power over 1 minus 3/5, which would give you 1.843. Because they give me r, I know it's geometric, so it's going to be s sub n. I don't know what number that one is, so I'm going to use the other equation because I know what a sub n is. So it's going to be first term minus my last term. Times my ratio, all over 1 minus your ratio. When you plug that in your calculator, you get this number. D, that means I'm dealing with arithmetic. I'm going to do my favorite because I get my first term and I have my last term. Which will give me 403. I'm thinking, yep, I'm pretty sure I have a common difference. If I did negative 21.5 minus a negative 23, I get 1.5, and that would definitely work for here. I do not know my last term, so I'm just going to do s of 62 is equal to 62 over 2, 2 times your first term, plus your common difference, times the number of terms minus 1. And when I plug all this into my calculator, I get, it says find the specific term of the geometric sequence given the specific characteristics that we have. So they've told me it's geometric, so I got to figure out my r. So I got 0.2 divided by 20. It's going to give you 0.01. So a sub 5 is going to be equal to my first term times my common ratio to the 5 minus 1, which is going to give me 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did too many make that a 2. So we know a sub 4 is 28. We don't know what a sub 1 is, but we know this is times 2 to the 4 minus 1, 2 to the third, divide by 8. A sub 1 would be equal to 7 halves. Okay, so infinite sequence has an equation. I have to first figure out what my r is. And your r has to be less than 1. So 3 divided by 6 gives you 1/2, so that is. So then the sum would be your first term divided by 1 minus your ratio, which would give me 12 when I put that in my calculator. It says find the first 6 terms. Well, b1 is equal to 5. b2 would be equal to 2 times 5 plus 3, which would equal to 13. b sub 3 would be 2 times 13 plus 3. b4 would be 2 times 29 plus 3 equals 61. b5 would be equal to 2 times 61 plus 3, which is 125. And b6 would be equal to 2 times 125 plus 3, which is 253. u1 is equal to -3, u2 is equal to 1, they gave us. So u3 is going to be equal to your first previous term, or your first term, which is -3, or previous one, plus the one right below it. So you're always going 2 back. This means you're going 2 back. So then your u sub 4 would be equal to 2 back, 1 plus 1, -2, which would equal -1. And then your u sub 5 would be equal to 2 times plus -1, -2 plus -1, which is -3. u6 is -1 plus -3, which is -4. The 9th term, you're just going to put 9 in for a. So 81/12, which reduces to 27/4. This one, we have to find the 4th term. So the 2nd term is going to be equal to your first term, oops, that's a 56, minus 4/2, which is 76. Then a sub 3 is going to be that term, the 76 minus 4/2, which is 36. And then a sub 4 is going to be 36 minus 4/2, which is equal to 16. Okay, the 5th partial sum, I got to find all the 5 terms. So 3 to the first plus 4 would equal 7. A to the second would equal 3 squared plus 4 would equal 13. A to the third, 3 cubed plus 4 equals 31. A to the fourth would equal 247, and when I add all those up, I get 383. Sum of the 8th term. A couple things you could do. You don't know what the 8th term is, but you could easily figure that out, I guess, if you needed to. It looks like my common difference, because it looks like it's going up, would be probably should show that, minus a -2, which would equal 5. So my common difference is 5. You could do a sigma notation where you're starting with your first term. You're going to your 8th term. You start with -2 plus your common difference and -1. And when you do that, when you plug in all those values, you would get 13 plus 5 would equal 18. 18 plus 5 would equal 23. That's your a sub 6. A sub 7 would equal 28. A sub 8 would equal 33. And this would equal 124. A sub 3 would equal 3 squared minus 2 to the third, which is 1. A sub 4 would equal 4 squared minus 2 to the fourth, which equals 0. A to the fifth would equal, or a sub 5 would equal 5 squared minus 2 to the fifth, which equals negative 7. When you add those all up, you get negative 6. A sub 0 would equal 2 times 0 minus 3. A sub 1 would equal 2 times 1 minus 3. A sub 2 would equal 2 times 2 minus 3. And a sub 3 would equal 2 times 3 minus 3, which is 3. So when you add those all up, you get 0. First, second, third, fourth. The first term, the x value be to the fourth, the third, the second, and the first. So if I know that, then I know my y term is going to be to the third. So I know it's going to be 4 choose 3 because it's whatever my second term's exponent is. I know 2 is going to be to the first power, and I know negative 3 is going to be to the third power. Put that in my calculator, you get negative 216. Okay, well the first one's going to be p to the 8th, then it's going to go p to the 7th, p to the 6th, p to the 5th, p to the 4th, then p to the 3rd. Well, if p is to the 3rd, then q has to be to the 5th. So I know it's 8, choose 5, 3 is going to be to the 3rd power, and 1 is going to be to the 5th power. So that's 1, 5, 1, 2. Using the triangle, row 5 would be 1, 5, 10, 10, 5, 1. So I'm going to write those guys. We'll see if I have enough room. So this would be r to the 5th, r to the 4th, r to the 3rd, r squared, r to the 1st, and r to the 0. This would be negative 3 to the 0, negative 3 to the 1st, negative 3 to the 2nd, negative 3 to the 3rd, negative 3 to the 4th, negative 3 to the 5th. So that's going to give me r to the 5th minus 15r to the 4th plus 90r to the 3rd minus 270r squared plus 405r minus 243. Binomial expansion. So you're doing 6 choose, and then you go up. Your first term is going to go down, second term goes up. Make sure the two exponents add to, I think I made them as 6, 5, 4, this is 3, so this should be 2, and this should be 4. And when you put that in your calculator and solve each of these individual, like you're doing each of these individual things one at a time. This is what you get. all done.